Thrilled to be here today. Hi, everybody. I am back. Again, I am Lisa Deck, and I am a board member with Rare New England and a rare disease patient myself. Identifying resources and sharing them with our community is a major goal of Rare New England. Today, we are very fortunate to have three excellent speakers with us for a panel on resources. Our goal is to discuss promoting better life quality. With us today, we have Austin Leclaire from One Rare. We have Donna Sullivan with the Coalition Against Pediatric Pain, and we have Rob Long from Uplifting Athletes. So for the next hour or so, we are going to talk about these resources, and I think this is how we're going to run it. I'm going to go ahead and introduce each speaker. They're going to talk for a few minutes, tell us a little bit about themselves, their organization, and the resources that they have available to the rare disease community. So we'll go through all three of them, and at the end, we're going to open up our discussion to others. So if you have questions or comments, I ask you to put them in the chat, and we will go ahead and have a conversation at the end. It looks like somebody's having an audio issue, so I'm not sure what that is, but if Jeff, maybe you can check that for us. But we are going to go ahead and get started. I first would like to introduce you to Austin. Austin Leclaire is a 22-year-old college student currently working on a mechanical engineering degree at Bunker Hill Community College. In his free time, Austin enjoys playing power soccer with his team in a weekly practice and in games around the United States, and he enjoys downhill skiing with his family. Austin has been a participant in clinical trials. He is a volunteer on Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy's Adult Patient Advisory Committee, and a member of the review board for certified Duchenne care centers. In 2019, he co-founded One Rare, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization aiming to fill the gaps in social, recreational, and educational opportunities for young adults living with rare diseases. Whenever possible, Austin uses his voice to elevate the DMD community and increase awareness of the need for approved drug therapies. He has testified at congressional briefings and worked directly with FDA representing the Duchenne community. As the subject of documentaries, including To the Edge of the Sky, Rare in Common, and Gene Doctors, and the recipient of the 2016 Meyer-Whaley Instrument of Change Award, Austin has been committed to using his life situation to raise awareness for those living with rare disease. Practically, he would like to be involved in technology that can make the lives of those affected easier and help to measure benefit in clinical trial settings so more non-ambulant young men will be able to participate and give valuable data. It is an honor to have Austin here with us today, and I'm going to let him take it from here. Thank you, Austin.
Yeah, thank you for that great introduction. I really appreciate it. Jeff, can you get the slides up? Thank you. Next slide. So One Rare was founded because I had begun to age out of camps for young adults with rare diseases. And around this time when I was starting to age out, I started not really enjoying the camps as much because I was noticing I felt like I was being treated more like a child that was being babysat and not an adult that got to enjoy recreational activities as someone with a disability. And as I started aging out of these camps, we started realizing that there wasn't very much, my mother and I started realizing that there isn't very much programming available for those living with rare diseases, so they can have camp, so they can have educational opportunities and be taught how they can advocate for themselves and learn treatment options that they have available to them. Next slide. We had our first One Rare experience last year, just in 2020, and we had originally wanted to do it in person, but because of the pandemic, we had to switch over to virtual. I was very upset that we had to do virtual because I was really looking forward to a lot of activities that we can do in person, especially introducing those to adaptive sports that I enjoy. And next year, we plan on doing it in person. We already have dates available, so please check our website if you want to sign up. And we also are going to do virtual because we realize that it'd be very important to provide access to those that aren't able to travel, because there are some disabilities that make it difficult to be able to travel. Next slide. And we had, so the first year, we had a lot, it was a pretty jam-packed days. We had 5 days, we had 5 sessions, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. We had it available to young adults 18 to 35, but we had realized that this was, we had a little too much of a packed schedule. So this past year, we ended up updating it, so we ended up having less sessions per day, because we found it was really hard for participants to keep up with it, granted that they have jobs and other obligations. Next slide. We had a lot of great speakers that were that are listed here. I had my good friend Gabe Malika from, he's been a camp counselor of mine for years, and he is a comedian in New York, and we had him come on to do a comedy night. We also had another one of my camp counselors, Abby Brockman. She did a resume workshop. I really enjoyed that. And we also had our friends from our Odyssey do a meetup with all of our participants. Next slide. And as you can see, we had over 60 registrants, people that registered. We had a lot of keynote speakers talking about many things like bystander awareness training and medical PTSD. There's also adaptive yoga, art, and as I mentioned, comedy. And we did an escape the room, which was really cool. At first, my mom proposed us doing this. I didn't think I would really enjoy the escape the room because I was having trouble visualizing how it would work virtually, but I found out that it was really fun and I would highly recommend doing it. Next slide. This is a list of all the different keynote speakers and events that we had during this year and last year. Next slide. Here are some of our resource fair partners. If anyone else, if there's any other nonprofits that want to work with us, we really love collaborating and are up for working with any nonprofit that thinks they could also contribute to making One Rare more fun to our participants. Next slide. And here are some of our many sponsors that we're really thankful for. We couldn't have done this event without them. And we're always looking for more sponsors that want to help make this event possible. As we're moving into in person, we're going to be needing a lot more funding. So we're definitely looking for sponsors that can make that possible and to make it even better so we can provide programming to more individuals. And that's my slide. And thanks for having me speak. I look forward to answering any questions later on.
Thank you so much, Austin. I know when I heard about One Rare, I recognized such a need. And I love when your mom was speaking earlier, she was talking about your adventurous spirit. And I can see that if there isn't an adventure for you to have, you're going to build it and you're going to make it happen. So thank you for that. We appreciate you being here. Our next speaker on our panel is Donna Sullivan. Donna is a passionate writer who uses her experience in media and communication to creatively raise awareness of the needs of kids living with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I can never say that correctly, I apologize, and complex pain conditions. As a board member for the Coalition Against Pediatric Pain, Donna helps support and advocate for children and families. An outspoken voice for the rising epidemic of psychological misdiagnosis and rare diseases, Donna is also the consulting producer for Complicated, a film in production with Open Eye Pictures. Donna has 3 children diagnosed with hypermobility, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, POTS, MCAS, and complex regional pain syndrome. She also serves on the board of directors for Merlin's Kids, a New Jersey-based nonprofit that trains and places service dogs with children in need. We are very happy to have you here, Donna, and we look forward to hearing about these organizations and the work you do. Take it away.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to come here and speak today. And it's just been an incredible conference. So thank you to RNE for sharing all this information and strategies and just all the energy from all the advocates and resources here in the room. Before we get started, I just want to make sure, are you able to see my slides right now? Because I'm still a little new to this whole virtual presentation game.
Not right now. I cannot see them.
You're not. Okay. Give me just 1 second to see if I can work this through. I apologize. I thought we had this all set, ready to go. Let me just take 1 second. And if not, we can just go without it. It's fine. We can probably post it for later, right? For after the event.
We can, yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, so my name is Donna Sullivan. I'm here from the Coalition Against Pediatric Pain, or TCAP, as we are often known as. We're an organization that's actually celebrating our 10-year anniversary, which I can't even believe, starting next year. And our group was basically founded by a group of moms and parents in Boston. Their children were going through a pediatric pain clinic. And at the time, pediatric rehab and pediatric medicine was just starting to kind of focus on a rehabilitative model for pain. Not a lot was known about the conditions that their kids had. And these parents, kind of started to connect and realize that there wasn't a lot of resources or information about how to help your child if your child did have a chronic or a complex pain condition. So TCAP decided that it was up to them to create one. So they founded the organization, and back in the early days, the mission was a little bit different than it is today. We represent kids living with all kinds of pain conditions, but I would say, a good percentage of our population does live with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, like my kids have, complex regional pain syndrome, dysautonomia, mitochondrial disease. There's kind of a whole slew of conditions that we tend to see more regularly, but that's not to say that we don't work with sickle cell and basically any child whose life has been affected by chronic pain. And one thing I should say is that when a child has pain, the entire family is affected. So years ago, when this group of parents started, they would do fundraising and they would actually collect items and have yard sales to try to raise money so they could fly physicians in who might know something about these symptoms that their child is having or this condition that they've been diagnosed with, but the physicians don't seem to know a lot about. So they would have think tanks. And we actually worked with RNE way back in the day. We have a very long-standing relationship with RNE. But bringing doctors together to kind of talk about what are these conditions and what is known about them and just kind of sharing experiences. Thankfully, now 10 years later, there's been a lot of advances and a lot more understanding about these conditions. So we don't need to provide that educational piece anymore. But the primary mission that we started out with was to make sure that no child living in pain felt alone, is still very much in need and is a very big part of what we do. Because you see, pain is something that is very subjective and it can be very hard to treat. Imagine, like in the case of my family, I had a 10-year-old son who had an accident and he had a genetic condition, and we bring him into a top Boston hospital only to be told this condition, complex regional pain syndrome, ranks higher on the McGill pain scale than amputation when it flares. So that's the high level of pain. And we don't know a lot about it, and we don't have a cure. And even the treatment path, isn't really guaranteed. So as a parent, you kind of step back and you're like, okay, what do I do? And, if today's conference hasn't driven this point home enough, it's, you kind of find your tribe, you find other families, you find other people who may have experienced or lived it or have guidance. And that's a big part of what we do at TCAP. What we find is with kids when they have chronic pain, there's a lot of challenges that you wouldn't expect with a lot of other conditions that might be a little bit more of a clear-cut treatment. One day a child might be able to function and maybe go out in public or go to an event, but because of that, their pain is high and now they might have a couple of days in bed. And that's not always very well understood by the schools. It's not always necessarily well understood by the families. It's not even sometimes well understood by physicians, depending on where you live and who you see. So there's a lot of variables that as parents, you have to navigate. And unfortunately, with some of the conditions that we treat, these kids can become quite debilitated because it's a very serious high level of pain that they're dealing with. And obviously, the cultural shift towards pain management and opioids, has affected our population pretty significantly. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to quality of life, right? That's what we're here talking about. So at the height of my family's experience, I had one child who was bedbound in and out for 4 years because of an undiagnosed tethered spinal cord. I had my son, on the other hand, who's living with this, complex regional pain situation and is just, in a chair and miserable. And I still got a parent. So thank God I found TCAP. And it was basically parents that were able to say, okay, have you thought about this physician? Have you tried this? What do you know about this? And just little things like the bad days. How do you keep your child going emotionally when they're living with pain? How do you help them get the wherewithal to maybe take a shower on any given day? And these are some of the kinds of things that, people don't recognize are really kind of Herculean efforts on an everyday basis. So TCAP, getting back to the organization, we created this network, if you will, across the country of all different families and whatnot. And we have a couple of programs that are kind of the cornerstone of what we can offer. The first being obviously information and support. We have parents calling all the time. The average diagnosis for some of our kids runs 10 to 14 years, which is a lifetime for a child. So we have parents on the diagnostic journey that will sometimes reach out to us and where they just try to provide support, or a lot of times just an ear to listen. We have a Send a Smile program that we fundraise for. And if we have children who are having surgeries or are having, missing a prom, or struggling emotionally because, of all the challenges that their pain brings, or maybe they're being bullied, our friend Cheryl loves to send packages, and she'll send them gifts to cheer them up and just let them know that they're not alone and somebody is thinking about them. One of our proudest achievements is about 5 years ago, we started a camp with the Center for Courageous Kids out in Scottsville, Kentucky. Sue Pinkham and her daughter Jody really are the heart and soul of it. And what we do is bring together kids along with Knockout RS and the RSDSA organization. We bring the kids together. It's free for families. We fundraise all year so that families can have a free week of summer camp. And we just really focus on good summer fun. There's no talk of medical. There's no talk of coping. There's no talk of, hospitals. We try to give the kids an escape. And it's a really incredible experience. One, because to see all these kids come together, a lot of them may not have met kids like them who have the same kind of struggles with the unpredictability of their day-to-day life, or maybe some of the uncertainty, with their particular conditions. But for the parents, even more so. I remember one time at camp, one of the challenges that we do see in our population, which unfortunately is growing, is a lot of these kids have many conditions that overlap, and sometimes physicians can have concern about over medicalization. So as a safety protocol, they'll bring in, child protective services to just kind of investigate and make sure this child is getting appropriate medical care. And if you've got a sick child and you're doing everything you can to keep that kid going, sometimes that's the one piece that can just knock you right over the edge. And fortunately, being at camp and talking to all the families about who this has happened to and how they navigated it and how to best resolve it, we were kind of able to bring together a really supportive group. So if a family finds themselves in that situation, we can help them get it resolved quickly and efficiently with the least amount of trauma possible for their child. So, summer camp is a huge piece of what we do. And then I would say the other piece is, we're still doing education, we're still doing advocacy work, we're helping families try to better communicate with their schools and just really raise awareness of the needs and the unmet needs of kids that are living with pediatric pain. So hopefully that gave you a good overview of TCAP in a nutshell. And again, thank you for having me today.
Thank you so much, Donna. And it's before I started in this rare disease community and became a patient, I had no idea about the pain patients, and it really is quite a debilitating issue. And so it's really wonderful that we have that for especially pediatric pain patients. That's got to be tough to deal with. And I'm sorry, did you have something to
Yeah,
say?
no, I was going to say, unfortunately, it's still a very kind of undertreated and misunderstood problem.
Right.
And it's difficult to navigate. And I have a friend who always says, imagine you have a really bad toothache, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's going to affect your focus. It's going to affect, as we all know with chronic illness, right? The fatigue and the drain. But
Right.
that's a pretty significant drain when you're a child and you're expected to go to school or participate in gym or, in some cases,
Right.
like I said, just take a shower. So,
Right.
yeah.
And I think as you mentioned that an illness isn't just the patient, it's the family, and especially when it's a child. So it's great to hear about some of those resources. And we are going to change direction on the panel now, and we are going to introduce Rob Long from Uplifting Athletes. So I want to take a moment to tell a little bit about Rob's personal story. He is a suburban Philadelphia native. He is a former All-American punter at Syracuse and has lived the rare disease journey. In December of 2010, late in his senior season, Rob was diagnosed with anaplastic astrocytoma, a rare and aggressive form of brain cancer. His prognosis at the time was less than encouraging, and his surgery, recovery, and treatment took 16 months. Prior to his diagnosis, Rob was on the path to the NFL as a punter, but that opportunity was lost by the time he was healthy enough to train again. A graduate of Syracuse University, Rob pursued a master's in new media management from the SI Newhouse School of Public Communications. He also received a BS from the Martin Whitman School of Management. Rob played football all 4 years for the Orange and was voted team captain by his teammates his final 2 seasons. He became the second executive director of Uplifting Athletes at the end of 2018. Prior to taking over as the executive director, Rob served as Uplifting Athletes Director of Rare Disease Engagement for nearly 2 years. Rob has a steadfast commitment and connection to the rare disease community as a rare brain cancer survivor. As a former star college student athlete, his passion and drive to advance the mission of Uplifting Athletes is inspirational. Rob and his wife, Ari, reside in suburban Philadelphia with their dog, Winston. And I'm honored to have Rob here today, and he's going to jump in and tell us about Uplifting Athletes. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you so much for the intro, Lisa. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to talk more about Uplifting Athletes and what we do. So Uplifting Athletes, the mission of our organization is to inspire the rare disease community with hope through the power of sport. The origin story of our organization goes all the way back to 2003. Our founder, Scott Shirley, was a Penn State football player whose father was diagnosed with a rare kidney cancer. And really at that time, Scott and his family were told that Scott's father had about 6 months left to live, and that they should go home and enjoy those final days. And for Scott, as a collegiate football player at Penn State, he felt that if they did anything right, wrong, or indifferent, it ended up being in the newspaper. And he really wanted to take that platform and use it to inspire, inspire the rare disease community, inspire hope. And so he rallied his teammates, held a fundraising event back in 2003, and raised enough money to make a contribution to the Kidney Cancer Association. And that contribution ended up being able to jumpstart what became a therapy for Scott's father's cancer. Unfortunately, it came to market just about 6 months after Scott's father had passed away. And Scott realized that there's an incredible power and a platform that athletes have. And so he developed this organization, became a 501c3 in 2007. And really what we want to do is help athletes at all levels, high school, college, and professional athletes, help them realize the platform that they have, and then leverage that platform to support the rare disease community. We have 4 main programs that we really operate through. We have our rare disease awareness initiatives, which really is baked into everything that we do. We believe we have a very unique and awesome opportunity to leverage the platform of sports to bring the messages of the rare disease community to the general public through that platform. And it's something that we're really excited about. And we've been able to work with athletes really at college, the collegiate level and the professional level to do that. And it's something that we're really proud of and want to continue to take the opportunities as they come to tell the stories and the messages of the rare disease community to that athletic community, which is so large. Our other programs, we have an Uplifting Leaders program. So we have a network of 25 Division I football schools all across the United States. Schools like Penn State, Syracuse, Notre Dame, Clemson, Florida State, that all participate in the Uplifting Athletes program. We have current student athletes that lead those chapters, and we have an Uplifting Leaders program that works with those student athletes to help provide them an internship-like experience while they're playing sports in college. And for them, it's we craft our programming so that it helps to support them as athletes and help them in a unique way to leverage the platform that they have. Our on-campus ambassadors hold 2 fundraising events each year. And when they graduate, I think one of the really cool things is that they're able to leave that institution not only with a degree and a great playing resume, but also able to say that, hey, while I was in college, I did more than just attend school and play football. I was actually an active advocate in supporting the rare disease community. So that's something that we are really encouraged about and look to continue to develop. And I mentioned we work with a lot of college football programs, but we are now piloting our first women's soccer chapter. And so we are looking forward in the coming months and years to growing the number of sports that we work with and diversifying the offerings so that athletes from all backgrounds can really, and all sports, be able to participate in Uplifting Athletes in our programming. Additionally, we have our rare disease research initiative, which is something that I'm really proud of and something that we've developed. In 2018, we launched our first ever Young Investigator draft. The Young Investigator draft was a culmination of a lot of work on our team and also kind of trying to reimagine the way that we could support and fund rare disease research. So I will plug the fact that our rare disease research grant program is currently accepting applications to fund research. And so how we've put this together is through the Young Investigator draft. We've modeled the Young Investigator draft after the NFL draft. And so instead of drafting the top athletes in the country each year, we're drafting the top rare disease researchers and celebrating them and their work, as well as providing a research grant, an $20,000 unrestricted research grant for them to move their research forward. I think one of the things that's really important to Uplifting Athletes and our organization as a whole is that we believe so firmly in collaboration. And I know it's been talked about and how important collaboration is, that there's no one patient advocacy organization, there's no one researcher or even one industry member that's going to be able to solve all the issues and needs of the rare disease community. And so for us, when we were putting together the Young Investigator draft, we didn't want to just try and fund research the traditional way. And so our application process is actually a joint application with a researcher and a patient advocacy organization. The reason that we do this is that we understand that no matter how brilliant, how talented, how driven researchers are, they often can end up working in a silo. And so we believe it's really important that those researchers understand the needs of the patient population and making sure that the research that they're conducting is addressing those needs from the top priority down. Additionally, we've learned that researchers are spending anywhere from 40 to 60% of their time just to secure funding for their research. And for us, this is unacceptable. We use the analogy that if we had NFL players out doing fundraising Monday through Thursday so that they could play a game on Sunday, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So we need to be able to empower these researchers to do what they do best and what they want to be able to doing, and that's the research. So we believe by building the bridge between the researcher and the patient advocacy organization, that those patient advocacy organizations can rely on those researchers to conduct the research, and the the researchers can rely on the patient advocacy organizations to help support them, kind of be the fundraising arm of their organization. So for us, we're really excited about the development of the Young Investigator draft. As I mentioned, our our grant application window is open. If you go to upliftingathletes.org/RFA, all the information about the Young Investigator Draft and how to apply is there. But so even furthermore, I think what's really exciting is the growth of our organization. That we launched this program in August of 2018. We gave away 6 $10,000 grants, and really excited to announce that in 2022 we'll be funding 9 $20,000 grants. So there'll be 9 different researchers from 9 different patient advocacy organizations funded through the Young Investigator Draft this year. And through 2021, we've now funded 24 different researchers and $440,000 worth of grants. So it's from the research side, we're really focused and have a commitment to supporting rare disease research across the rare disease community. And then the final program that I'll talk about is our Uplifting Experiences program. This is something that I am believing that over the next 6 to 12 months, we're really going to be working to enhance and to further develop. But at a very high level, what our Uplifting Experiences program is really us using the network of athletes that we have, like I said before, from the college and professional levels, and leveraging those relationships to support and engage with the rare disease community and provide unique experiences. 2 weeks ago, we held an uplifting experience in conjunction with the Kansas City Royals. We also had a couple of members of the Kansas City Chiefs in attendance. The Kansas City Royals hosted us at a baseball game. We had 8 rare disease families there, and it was just really incredible for them to be able to spend time with one another and each other, and have the NFL athletes there. The player from the Royals, Michael Taylor, who hosted us, came and spoke to the families beforehand. And I think it's just really an opportunity for us to provide unique experiences for these families that have so much going on. And it's a great opportunity for us to provide a bright spot in their days. And so for us as an organization, we want to be able to continue to build our network in the rare disease community and the athletic community and bridge that gap, and continue to support the rare disease community in any way that we can. So that's a little bit about Uplifting Athletes. There's a ton of information on our website at upliftingathletes.org. And I'm always happy to set up time to talk or answer any questions about the organization as a whole. So thank you, Lisa, so much for asking me to be here. And I am so thrilled to be a part of this, and pleasure to meet everybody as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rob. I have to say, it's unfortunate that the NFL didn't get you, but I think the rare disease community is very happy to have you. So I don't think that's what you wanted to happen, but you're clearly doing your part. So thank you very much for that.
I honestly, I've thought about that a lot, and I would not change anything that's happened to me. I think I'm incredibly blessed and fortunate. I have been more fulfilled over the last 5 years working with Uplifting Athletes than I ever would have been playing football. So for me, this is something that I'm incredibly fortunate to be able to be a part of. And I'm thrilled to be able to work in the rare disease community and meet just so many incredible people. And I hope Uplifting Athletes will continue to grow and develop and be able to be a beacon of hope for all those that are going through their battles.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Wow. So 3 amazing speakers telling us about things that exist. I wanted to open it up to some questions. I'm a very curious person, so I have a few questions of my own. But if you all who are listening have any questions, please put them in the chat. I think, if Donna and Austin and Rob, if you want to bring your cameras back on, we can just talk for a minute. Rob, since you are here, I'm going to put you on the spot first. Not really the spot. Question for you. So I know looking at the grants, yes. Does the patient advocacy organization provide half of that funding and Uplifting Athletes provide half? Is that correct? And then it all goes to a researcher funded partnering with the organization. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So what we do is it's all about collaboration for us. We want to be able to help support research organizations, especially for us, and this is a part of, strategically as we were developing the Young Investigator Draft programming, was that we know that the organizations, the patient organizations in the rare disease community really run the gamut from being, really small organizations that may only have, 10 to 25, maybe $50,000 in revenue a year, to the larger organizations that have, millions of dollars a year. And so what the Young Investigator Draft is really continuing to be is to be there to support all organizations. And so that is the process you described, is that we do match the grant money, and then we issue that money to the academic institution to be used by that researcher at their sole discretion. So for us, it was trying to eliminate any red tape, anything that may hold up those researchers, and really allow them, whether they need to hire an intern for the summer, whether they need to buy mice for mouse models, whether they need equipment, whatever it is that helps make progress for them in that disease state, is really what our focus is.
Excellent, thank you. And one final question. So as a mom, and my kids are just starting high school, but you mentioned high school student athletes and leveraging their power. And I think it's awesome that you guys talk about high school, college, professional, and I'm a huge sports fan. So what advice would you give to some of those high school athletes who are just starting, if they wanted to kind of have their voice heard with Uplifting Athletes and get involved?
Yeah, so I think for us, one of the things that's great about the power of sport is that it carries no matter where you go, whether it's high school or college or the professionals. Like for us, one of the programs that we had developed called Team UA is really to help work with high school student athletes and really the booster clubs. So we know that a lot of these high schools and the teams, they have fundraisers at the beginning of each year. And so one of the things that we thought would be really cool is if we could partner with those high school booster clubs and essentially help them raise money, as well as help the kids understand, the importance of supporting, the rare disease community in this instance. So we've done campaigns with high schools that, they raise money and the parents donate for every 3-pointer the team makes in the month of October. And what we do there is then, take that money that's raised and split it between the booster club and Uplifting Athletes. And sometimes, the booster club makes a donation and contributes all the money to Uplifting Athletes. And sometimes they use that to help buy uniforms or travels, shuttles or whatever they need. So it's really just getting out there and really understanding that there's more to more going on in the world than just sports. And I think that's one of the powerful things that people can realize at all levels, that people look up to, for better or for worse, athletes at times. And I think using that platform for positive change is really important, and understanding that from a young age.
Right. Awesome. That's great. And great advice. I'm going to start talking to my kids about that. So we'll plant the seed. Actually, I have a question for you, Donna. I know you talked a lot about TCAP, but talking like just a personal experience, what is something that your children benefited from with TCAP? I think kind of those personal anecdotes and discussions really, can exemplify what the organization does.
Sure. I think if I were to kind of step back and take a look at the overall benefit of what my kids got from it, I mean, it's a long list, but I think initially one of the things that was really hard to navigate was that feeling of, accepting that this is now my life and it's different than what I planned, and how do I get through all these days, and it's just that real sense of isolation and feeling alone. And I think by being able to bring in other families that also had, kind of crazy experiences sometimes in the medical system, or, disappointments with a surgery that didn't go right, and finding people that understood that and experienced that really helped my kids just, I always say to parents, and this is a really horrible thing, but like when things don't go well, with your journey, it isn't personal. We live in a highly segmented healthcare system, and navigating it is really hard, but there's nothing more personal than your own health and your own kids. So it's hard not to take it personally. And I feel like TCAP gave my kids community around them, so that they didn't feel like it was just them. They weren't alone. And it kind of gave them the strength to kind of push forward and to try to build the best quality of life that they could in spite of their chronic pain.
Awesome, thank you. And I know we have some extra time, but we did have another person who was going to speak on the panel who was having internet issues on her end. So we don't have her here. So I think we're going to be wrapping up soon. But I want to end with you, Austin. Your mom mentioned a couple of the things, the different sports you do. And I think we're going to end on a little bit of a fun note. I want you to tell us, if you would, about some of the experiences you've had with power sports and the different things you've done, and tell us the best time, the funniest time, the most fun time, whatever you feel like telling us. I'd love to hear a brief story about some of those.
Yeah, so I've played power soccer since I was about 8 or 9, and I've loved it ever since. And actually, some of my closest friends I made through power soccer. And it's kind of funny, we call my soccer team the D team because we all have Duchenne. So it's pretty funny that so lots of my close friends I've met through there, and we enjoy going to tournaments with each other and getting to just hang out. Sometimes we talk a little too much at practice because that's how we get our socialization as well. But we generally really enjoy, I just enjoy the sport, getting to meet other people with different disabilities, seeing how no matter the disability, you're able to play extremely aggressively and the same as other athletes would. So I just think it's really fun to get to meet new people, get to travel to different places, and I get to let my inner competitiveness come out. There's been I've done some pretty dangerous things with soccer before. Like, I decided to try to block a goal, I decided I was going to T-bone someone with the soccer ball. And if you watch the video, you actually can see the front of my chair flies up in the air, and everyone's like freaking out, thinking I'm going to flip over. I'm just sitting in my chair laughing the whole time. So that was one of my favorite parts, was just like being aggressive and then people getting really concerned, but realizing that I can be fearless during it and not worry about getting hurt. And I think that that's really difficult. Like, being someone with a disability, you can easily get hurt. So being able to be competitive and not have to worry about that, I think is one of the greatest feelings.
That's awesome. And I may be just thinking this, but I'm in the rare disease community and I'm always thinking about collaboration. And I can see you and Rob having a good conversation about collaboration here.
Actually, yeah, I was thinking that I want to try to see how my team and Rob's team can get together and we can work on some form of collaboration. I think that would be great.
I would love that.
I can see that. I see the D team being part of that uplifting athletes in some way. So I love it. That's great. We do have one other question that just came in, and I don't have this answer, but I'm going to put it out there because maybe somebody else does. Is there a group like TCAP for adults who have these disorders? And I can't answer that, but I have some thoughts, but maybe somebody has an answer. Donna, do you?
Yeah, I can. Yes, there are. And in fact, if you want to reach out to me at donna@tcap.org, I can help put you in touch. There are other organizations that we work with that do more adult oriented. I have to be honest, a lot of our families, the kids have the condition, but also they're genetic. So sometimes we have the parents that are also living with the same pain conditions. But there's definitely organizations that we partner with, and there's also a network of local support groups. So depending on where you live, I could probably help put you in touch with a pain support group. So definitely reach out, be happy to help.
Awesome. Would you just put your email in the chat, Donna? I think that might be, oh, you already commented. Disregard. You're a step ahead of me. People always are. I don't know if there's any other questions. Just let me check. And next time, Austin, next time you speak, we might have to have a video of you playing power soccer and maybe that actual move that you were talking about, because I think.
Yeah, I'll try to get a clip in.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
I'll try to find a few. I know my coach has a Dropbox with all the videos, so try to get some.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, I think with that, I want to say thank you so much to Rob and Donna and Austin for being here and sharing the resources, not only the organizations that you're speaking about, which have such great things to offer, but sharing your personal experiences and stories. And I know all of them had said if you have something, reach out. So I think collaboration is key in this space. So I want to say thank you to all of you for being here.
Thanks so much for having us. I'll put my email in the chat as well. And please, if people have questions about the Young Investigator Draft or anything Uplifting Athletes does, I'd love to connect with you all.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
And
thanks
Gloria,
for
I think
having us.
Of course. And I think at this point, Austin, Rob, and Donna, you guys can log off of Zoom. And I think Rare New England is going to have a final wrap up of the day. I believe I have that right. So thank you again. And if everybody wants to hang tight, I think we're just going to have our final wrap up.